I'm 28, a female, and I've been married for 2 years. My husband, Liam, and I met during college. We weren't rich, not even close. We both worked part-time jobs to cover tuition, took notes for money, and once split a single copy of a $120 economics textbook by ripping it in half. Liam always told me that love should be earned, not bought. I believed him, still do. But his mother, she was a different story. Liam's family came from old money. His grandfather built a textile empire. His father invested in real estate, and by the time I met them, they had a last name that opened doors in every bank and club in the city. His mother, Evelyn, acted like she ran a royal court, and I was the kitchen help who wandered into the drawing room by mistake. The first time I met her, she offered me a handshake, then wiped her hand with a tissue while maintaining eye contact. Subtle, but not subtle. I thought maybe I imagined it. Then came the little things, introducing me to her friends as Liam's friend, asking me if I'd ever been to Europe besides online, and commenting that I had a good, low-maintenance look, perfect for someone who doesn't have to network for a living. At our engagement dinner, she looked around the table, raised her glass, and toasted to building strong futures with stable partners and clear ambitions. Then she turned directly to me and asked what my 5-year financial plan was. Since Liam is not a charity organization, everyone laughed. I smiled. Liam's jaw tensed. I had just landed a full-time UX designer job at a mid-tier agency after a brutal 3-month job hunt, and I knew he was proud. He mentioned it immediately. Evelyn nodded, then sipped her drink like he'd said I became a barista. She made Liam get a prenup. I signed it before the lawyer could even finish his sentence. No hesitation. That shocked her. She expected a fight. What she didn't expect was that I had no plans to marry for money. I married because I loved her son. She thought that made me weak. What it made me was dangerous because now I had nothing to prove. When we bought a house, Liam and I split the down payment. I used my savings and a small inheritance from my grandmother. Evelyn toured it and called it a nice starter home. Then she told her friend Liam bought me a mansion as a wedding gift. I know this because one of those friends, who runs a boutique I occasionally shop at, told me Evelyn had described me as the gold digger with a LinkedIn page. Liam wanted to go no contact with her. I convinced him not to. I had plans. I didn't want silence. I wanted precision. Then came the weekend she crossed a line that no one in my family would have tolerated. She came over, under the pretense of helping us settle in. I had organized the kitchen around things my mother gave me. Some were sentimental, like a set of copper bottom pans she saved up for during her first year of marriage. But others were beautiful, functional heirlooms. When I returned from a grocery run that Saturday, I saw 3 garbage bags by the curb. One was rattling with the sound of ceramic. Evelyn said she'd cleared out the mismatched clutter and that I could get modern replacements from anywhere. She didn't even try to look guilty. Liam lost it. He shouted for the first time in front of her. She cried, said I was driving a wedge between them, called me controlling and manipulative. Liam told her to leave. She didn't. So I packed her bag myself and set it by the door. That's when she screamed she wouldn't be discarded like trash by some girl who coded her way into their lives. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not from anger. I'd grown up hearing worse insults whispered behind backs. What kept me awake was the clarity. I realized something. She saw me as a gold digger. Fine. Let's see how she likes living like one. I started planning. Step 1 was simple. Make her need me. I waited. I didn't speak to her. She tried calling. I didn't pick up. Not blocked. Just ignored. Liam offered to mediate. I told him no need. I was calm, collected, strategic. Then one day, she called him crying. Her investment in a luxury co-living real estate scheme turned out to be a scam. She didn't lose everything, but it was enough to shake her lifestyle. The staff was reduced. Her gym membership got downgraded. She even sold her vintage watch collection. She asked if she could stay with us, just for a few weeks, while repairs were being done on her condo. I told Liam we'd make it work. We turned the guest room into a gold digger suite. Designer knockoffs. Rental furniture from places that looked fancy, but creaked when you sat down. A kitchen stocked with meal kits that looked like 5-star meals online, but tasted like cardboard. A wardrobe full of fake labels and impractical heels. and a strict monthly budget that mimicked the income of a fresh college grad trying to make ends meet in a city like ours. She lasted 9 days. On day 10, she cried again, but this time there was no performance, no audience. Just me and her in the kitchen she once cleared out like it was a trash bin. She begged for forgiveness. I smiled, not out of cruelty, but because this was just the beginning. Evelyn called on a rainy Tuesday afternoon and asked if she could move in for a few months, just until everything settles. She mentioned how quiet her 5-bedroom house had become, how the silence echoed, how things feel different now that the staff is gone. Liam hesitated. He didn't say yes, but she brought it up again over dinner, this time with a heavy sigh and a dramatic, "I get scared at night being all alone." He gave me a glance. I nodded. I told him I'd handle everything. I treated it like a corporate onboarding. A week before her move-in, I sent her a welcome packet via email. When she arrived, a printed version was waiting for her on the entry table. The title, House Expectations, Temporary Resident Agreement. Below it were clear, calm bullet points. Clean up after yourself. No unannounced guests. Contribute weekly to groceries or help with tasks. No entering our bedroom unless invited. She laughed when she saw it, called it ridiculous, told me she was a guest, not a tenant. I smiled and told her exactly. Guests follow house rules. The next morning, I didn't cook. She sat in the kitchen waiting for breakfast like we were running a bed and breakfast. I walked in, picked up my bag, and said I had a 9:00 a.m. client meeting. Left her a handwritten note with directions to the nearest grocery store and an Uber voucher clipped to the corner. She came home around 6 p.m., carrying 2 bags, one with a bottle of imported champagne, the other with marinated olives and 3 jars of jam, all paid for using Liam's credit card. She didn't even try to hide the receipt. That night, while she unpacked her designer toiletries in the guest bathroom, I logged in and froze that card, transferred our savings into an account with restricted access. Just me and Liam. Then I sent him a text. "You'll thank me later, over dinner." I told him his mom looked anxious, probably feeling aimless. I said maybe she needed a sense of purpose, something light, just enough to help her feel involved. I suggested she take over household inventory, keep track of what we had in stock, paper towels, hand soap, snacks, detergent, maybe even help rotate the laundry schedule. Evelyn rolled her eyes when Liam brought it up, called it beneath her. I didn't argue. I just started forgetting to restock certain things. Her specific herbal tea, her French brand of bottled water, her preferred oatmeal, twice in a row. The third time, she started scribbling notes in the back of a fashion catalogue. By the end of the week, she had a small spiral notebook with headings, columns, and underlines. I told the housekeeper to take a few weeks off, said it was for privacy while Evelyn was staying. She offered to work around it. I insisted. I asked Evelyn politely if she'd mind taking care of things the traditional way for now, said it would give her structure, something to keep her mind occupied. She narrowed her eyes but didn't say no. I went room by room with subtle changes. In the guest bathroom, I swapped the plush white towels with dollar store versions that were rough and thin. In the guest room, I folded away the silk bedding and replaced it with our old cotton set from college, slightly faded, scratchy, but clean. The kind of thing she used to joke about when talking about early marriage struggles. She complained once when her back hurt. I nodded sympathetically. It's the minimalist lifestyle. Remember, you always said I should have stayed humble. I left small reminders throughout the house. Cleaning wipes with extra strong scent. Generic brand shampoo. Instant coffee instead of ground beans. When she asked about the missing espresso machine, I said we loaned it to a friend for a while. When she brought it up again, I said the same thing. Eventually, she stopped asking. I let her settle into the routine. Every evening, she reviewed her inventory notes and left sticky reminders on the fridge. Every morning, she set her alarm and checked the laundry baskets. When I started using an app to track our grocery list, she downloaded the same one and synced it to her phone. It was like watching someone slowly climb into a role they used to look down on. The next weekend, I invited Liam's cousin and his wife over for tea. They were always polite and had been distant from Evelyn since the engagement drama. I made sure Evelyn was in the kitchen when they arrived and handed her a dish towel on my way out. She served them, took their coats, brought out tea and mismatched mugs she used to mock. after they left. She sat at the table in silence for a while. Then she asked if we had any more of the nice vanilla-scented dish soap. I told her no, but we had a lemon-scented one from the clearance bin. She used it anyway. On day 15, I overheard her on a call with one of her friends. Her voice had changed, less crisp, more drawn out. She said she was helping around the house and enjoying the simple things lately. I walked past her without pausing, let her get used to the velvet cage, because I was just getting started with the redesign. The moment Liam's flight took off for his week-long business trip, Evelyn changed. It was subtle at first, closing doors louder, leaving her shoes in the middle of the hallway, switching the TV from our usual shows to her soap operas on full volume. By the second morning, she had moved my work laptop to the garage to declutter the dining table and, in the process, deleted 2 folders from a client presentation I had been preparing. She left a sticky note on the table that read, "The dining area is for meals, not machines." I didn't argue. I didn't even mention it. I just opened a new Google Doc and titled it Queen of Savings. I started documenting everything, dates, times, and what she did, from switching the laundry mid-cycle to refolding towels in a way that made them smell like mothballs. She had no idea I was keeping track. I adjusted our routine. Instead of cooking the usual dishes Liam and I enjoyed, I filled the freezer with bland, low-sodium frozen meals, turkey meatloaf, veggie stir-fry with no sauce, instant mashed potatoes. I told her we were cutting back to meet a financial goal. I made sure to casually mention how every dollar saved today becomes freedom tomorrow. She pretended not to mind, but she started adding hot sauce to everything and picked around the vegetables like a kid refusing broccoli. Her spa membership expired midway through the week. She left the brochure on the kitchen counter like bait. I picked it up, smiled, and handed her a coupon book for a local budget beauty chain that offered $10 facials and $5 manicures. I told her we were embracing self-care on a budget. She stared at the coupon for 10 seconds before placing it under the fridge magnet shaped like a piggy bank. 2 days later, she found a list I had taped to the fridge, titled Thoughtful Yet Affordable Mother's Day Gifts. It had suggestions like handmade bath salts, DIY memory jars, and printable gratitude cards. She read through it twice and then slammed the fridge door. I apologized for the clutter and replaced the list with a dry erase board that said, "Every gift counts when it's from the heart." I planned a tea with my close friend, who works at a non-profit organization that helps displaced families. She's one of the most grounded people I know, over lemon tea and plain crackers. She shared her experience of surviving on less than $1 a day during her early 20s. Evelyn tried to keep her expression neutral, but shifted in her seat several times. When my friend offered her a ride, Evelyn asked if she could take the cab home with her. My friend just smiled and gave her a flyer for a donation drive instead. That night, I framed a photo of the tiny studio apartment I lived in right out of college. I placed it on the mantel with a gold foil label that read, "Where it all started." When Evelyn noticed it the next morning, she asked if it was a joke. I told her it was a reminder of humble beginnings. She walked away without a word. The next day, I left my laptop open with my online bank statement on the screen. It showed my personal savings, organized, healthy, and growing. I made sure she passed by, just as I stepped out to take a call. When I came back, she was sitting stiffly in the living room. Later that evening, she asked if I was hiding money. I raised an eyebrow and said, "I thought I was a gold digger. Wouldn't that mean I have no money of my own?" She started calling Liam every night after that, complained that she was being neglected, said the house was cold, and she didn't feel seen. Liam listened, always. Then one night, he told her, "You're just living the lifestyle you always accused her of choosing. Isn't it enlightening?" She threatened to leave. I didn't stop her. I brought out her bags from the guest room, packed with folded clothes, and tagged each one with bright yellow dollar store luggage labels. I placed them neatly by the front door, added a tote with her house slippers, and left a small card that read, "Thank you for staying. Budget bliss awaits you next." She didn't leave. That night, she quietly took her bags back upstairs. The next morning, she was up early, wiping down the kitchen counters with a damp cloth. She didn't speak, didn't complain, just moved from cabinet to cabinet, rearranging things back to how I had them. That afternoon, I noticed she had placed an order for paper towels through the budget delivery service I'd signed up for. No complaints about the off-brand logo, no sighs about the low apply. Just clicked and confirmed. And that's when I knew the message had started sinking in. But I wasn't done yet. Liam had just gotten back from his trip and was catching up on work. So I took the opportunity to launch what I called Makeover Week. I pitched it to Evelyn like a bonding activity, something classy but budget-friendly. I framed it as an experience we could share and post about for her society group chats. She loved curating updates for them. I even threw in the idea that she could write a little blog entry titled Elegant Living on a Smart Budget. That got her attention. I showed her a list of free or nearly free salon deals I found through a student services app, haircuts, facials, and manicures, all done by trainees under supervision. I told her it would be a good story. She could say she was supporting the next generation. She agreed, mostly because I said I'd pay for both of us, and she assumed I'd back out halfway. We went to a local cosmetology school. She walked in, saw the mismatched chairs and vinyl floors, and turned around. I stopped her with a smile and said, "It's all about authenticity." She reluctantly sat down. I got a pretty decent trim. She asked for something youthful and ended up with uneven bangs. The student was nervous, and Evelyn's posture didn't help. When she turned to me for feedback, I clapped and called it very French-inspired, chic, unpredictable. She gave me a sideways look but said nothing. The next day was thrift store day. I called it the modern treasure hunt. I told her vintage shopping was all the rage, and that some celebrities even had secret accounts to shop anonymously. She bought into it quickly, spent over an hour flipping through racks, looking for a hidden designer tag. After finding nothing but off-brand polyester and a shirt with someone's name sewn inside, she gave up and blamed the lighting. I offered her a bag I had bought online, a near-perfect replica of a designer purse. I told her no one could tell the difference, not even in photos. She took it with a grin and wore it to brunch with two of her oldest friends. They met at a hotel cafe downtown. One of the women leaned in during dessert and whispered something. When Evelyn returned that evening, she dropped the bag on the hallway table like it was contaminated. She didn't bring it up. I didn't either. Later that night, I walked into the guest bathroom with a basket of clean towels and accidentally knocked off what I thought was a cheap sample vial. It turned out she had secretly stashed her expensive perfume. The bottle shattered. I apologized immediately and left a small sample vial I had saved from a cosmetics counter as a replacement. She didn't even realize the switch. She packed the vial in her clutch the next morning for a charity gala she was attending alone. About an hour into the event, she called me, not yelling, just whisper screaming from the bathroom. She said people were flinching near her. I told her maybe the bottle got switched somehow. She went silent. I suggested maybe it was her nerves. She hung up. When she got home, she didn't say anything about the perfume, just took a long shower and opened the windows. Midweek, I introduced her to one of my college friends, Farah, who now runs a small, affordable cleaning business. I casually mentioned that since Evelyn had been talking about reopening her home to visitors, maybe she'd want help getting things polished up. Evelyn laughed at the idea. Then I mentioned Liam had been saying we should visit her place next week to see how it looked. Suddenly, she wanted Farah's contact. She asked if Farah was the girl who knows all the chemicals. I nodded. That night, I handed her a new robe, matching ones. Actually white terry cloth with gold thread that said Budget Babe on the chest. Got them from a clearance rack, but they looked expensive in dim lighting. I told her we were doing a spa night. I lit candles in the bathroom, placed sliced cucumbers in the fridge, and turned off the central heating. When she asked about it, I told her cold detoxes were trending and better for the skin. She sat in silence, wrapped in 3 blankets, occasionally muttering about how ridiculous this all felt, while her face mask dried unevenly. At the end of the week, I handed her a certificate I designed and printed on gold-accented paper. You survived the Budget Babe experience. Congratulations on your first step toward humble glamour. I framed it and placed it on her nightstand. She didn't laugh. She moved it behind the alarm clock by the next morning. But something shifted. She stopped using the word gold digger, not just around me but altogether. Not in casual digs, not in sarcasm. She paused once mid-sentence when describing someone else's engagement ring and changed the subject. It wasn't because she had changed her mind. It was because she had finally realized that I was capable of playing the part better than she ever imagined, and she wasn't sure how far I'd go if pushed again. Liam's company planned a semi-formal celebration dinner at a rooftop venue downtown. It was one of those events where the food was plated like art. The drinks were silent pour, and the dress code had its own paragraph. I told Evelyn she could come with us. She asked which designer I'd be wearing. I said Amazon. I ordered a sleek black dress online, under $40, with adjustable straps and decent tailoring. For her, I went through a rental service that specialized in repurposed fashion. Technically, second-hand, but listed under names like vintage couture and archival capsule. I picked a dramatic maroon wrap gown for her. When she saw it hanging, she said it looked timeless. I nodded and added, "It's exclusive. Only a few pieces were ever made." She paired it with earrings. I slipped into her jewelry case earlier that day, replicas I bought from a street market last year. They sparkled like real diamonds under warm lighting. She wore them proudly. At the event, people mingled, clinked glasses, and complimented each other's outfits. One of Liam's colleagues, whose wife runs a jewelry boutique, asked Evelyn where she found the unique dupes. She went stiff. I leaned in and said, "They're so good, right? You can't even tell." Her smile froze in place. Liam caught the whole thing. He didn't interrupt, just gave me a look from across the room, half a grin, half a raised eyebrow. It said, "I'm both terrified and impressed." A few days later, I told Evelyn we were having a girls' night out. She brightened up. I drove us to the public library, where a free budgeting seminar was being held. The sign on the door said, "Stretch your sense, from paycheck to purpose." She walked in like she was entering a courtroom. We sat through a 90-minute presentation on bulk buying, coupon stacking, and seasonal meal planning. I nodded along, took notes, and asked a few questions. Evelyn sat stiffly, arms crossed, but didn't leave. I knew she wouldn't nod with Liam knowing she was with me for a night out. That same week, I introduced her to the envelope method. We pulled out grocery flyers and cash-filled envelopes labeled produce, pantry extras, and treats. I gave her a calculator and asked her to help budget for the week. She tried twice, gave up, then started over. The math didn't work. She couldn't figure out how potatoes, detergent, and snack bars somehow added up to over $100. She dropped the pen. I handed her a piggy bank. I decorated with glitter stickers. It said, "Essentials only." Every time she skipped something luxurious, a candle, a facial wipe, an imported yogurt, I dropped a coin in the jar, loudly. The clink echoed in the kitchen. Liam noticed. One evening, he asked if I was going too far. I told him she wanted me to prove I wasn't here for money, so I'm proving it. He didn't respond. He didn't need to. I removed her spa appointments from our shared calendar, replaced them with yoga in the park and city walking tours, led by retired teachers. When she asked about her wellness schedule, I handed her a printout of free community activities. She brought it up with Liam. He just shrugged and said, "Sounds peaceful. Why complain?" One night, I walked past the guest room and saw her on the desktop we keep for basic use, looking up ways to get rich without working and how to retire early with no savings. I didn't say anything. The next morning, I placed a neatly bound set of 30 printouts by her bedside, real stories of people who started with nothing: immigrants, single mothers, former addicts, people who built businesses from garage sales or turned thrift flips into brands. No commentary, just pages and a highlighter. That afternoon, she came into the kitchen while I was cutting vegetables. She sat down and asked how I grew up. I told her, 2-room apartment, water buckets when the taps ran dry, hand washing clothes on the rooftop, and 1 pair of school shoes a year that had to last through sports, the rain, and family weddings. I didn't dramatize it, just laid it out like bricks. She didn't say anything back, just watched me finish chopping and nodded once before walking out. That night, the washing machine buzzed. When I checked, she had started a load on her own whites, delicates, folded and separated. I watched her line up the towels perfectly on the rack before heading back upstairs. She never mentioned the jewelry again, never asked about the budgeting seminar, never brought up the spa. For the first time, she stopped trying to win. She started trying to adapt. I changed my approach. If Evelyn really thought being a so-called rich wife meant lounging in cashmere while sipping champagne. I'd let her live it, just not the version she expected. I called it the rich housewife experiment and told her we should both commit since we were apparently two kept women now. She didn't get the sarcasm, just raised an eyebrow and asked what it involved. I told her we'd be embracing the full lifestyle, influencer routines and all. She agreed, for now. The next morning, I knocked on her door at 5:55 a.m. and handed her a glass of lukewarm lemon water with chia seeds floating in it. I said it was part of the morning detox protocol. Then I rolled out 2 yoga mats and played a 6:00 a.m. stretch video I found from an influencer known more for her outfits than her technique. Evelyn kept up for about 5 minutes before collapsing into child's pose and staying there. By day 3, I set up a ring light in the living room, told her we were working on our brand. I never hit record. I just made her practice posing like she was about to be interviewed, holding coffee cups at angles, pretending to laugh, walking slowly while holding a book she wasn't reading. She asked when we'd start posting. I said we were perfecting the content pipeline first. She looked ready to scream. Meals got smaller, avocado toast on a rice cracker, chia pudding in mason jars, boiled carrots arranged into a flower shape. I snapped 5 photos of every plate before she could take a bite. When she asked for tea, I handed her a mug of green detox sludge and told her Gwyneth Paltrow swore by it. I swapped our pantry staples. Regular salt became Himalayan pink. Butter was replaced with ghee. Pasta became kelp noodles soaked in vinegar. She started eyeing the neighbor's takeout deliveries like a hungry cat. I reorganized the fridge. Everything had to be color-coded and placed in labeled glass jars. She reached for strawberries once, and I told her they hadn't been photographed yet. She backed away slowly. I told her it was all part of the aesthetic. She muttered something about how being poor might have been better than this. I began calling her my content partner whenever I was on speaker calls. Whether it was Liam's cousin or my bank advisor, I made sure to refer to her like we were running a lifestyle channel together. She flinched every time I said it. Midweek, I invited over 2 women from our old neighborhood who had built modest online businesses. One sold handmade soaps, the other customized embroidery kits. They were both stay-at-home wives with side hustles, and I knew exactly what would push Evelyn over the edge. I called it a business brainstorming brunch. She assumed she'd be served food and praised for her taste. Instead, she got a long PowerPoint about cost-per-click marketing and wholesaler spreadsheets. About 30 minutes in, she tried to leave. I had already triggered the smart lock on the gate. It's a feature we added when Evelyn first moved in, because she kept forgetting to close it. When she asked why it wouldn't open, I smiled and said, "You'll love the closing pitch." That evening, she sat in the garden swing, staring into the distance. I brought her a notebook and said, "You ready to plan content for our Living Below Your Means series?" She blinked at the title on the notebook and closed it without a word. Later that night, she asked if Liam would be home for dinner. I told her yes, and that he was excited to see our rich wife transformation progress. She didn't reply. When Liam walked in, I had the ring light on and asked him to join a mock cooking demo we were pretending to shoot. Evelyn stood in the background, wearing the matching robe from spa night, holding a spoon, trying not to cry. Liam burst out laughing mid-scene. He whispered, "You broke her." I looked over and said, "Not yet." After dinner, while he was washing dishes, I sat next to Evelyn and slid over the notebook again. It now had Content Plan Week 2, minimalist kitchen hacks written in glitter pen. She stared at it for 10 seconds, then covered her face. When she finally looked up, her voice cracked. She said, "Fine, you win. I take it back. You're not a gold digger." I nodded and said, "Good, because next week we start phase 2. I told Evelyn that phase 2 wasn't about punishment. It was about rebuilding from scratch. I explained it as clearly as I could. No more detox drinks or camera lights. Now we were moving into something more practical money management. Dumbed-down skills that matter. I showed her a brochure for a free local course called Financial Independence for Women, held every Thursday evening at the community center, a few blocks away. I signed us both up and told her we'd get a certificate at the end. She didn't say much, just nodded and added the dates to her planner. The first session, we carpooled on the way. I mentioned I hadn't brought cash for lunch. She opened her purse Chanel, still clinging to old habits, and found a crumpled $5 bill tucked between a lipstick and an expired gift card. She handed it to me and said we'd split a sandwich. We sat on a park bench and shared a plain turkey sub wrapped in wax paper. She didn't complain once. Inside the center, the instructor asked each of us to state our goals. I said, I want to build long-term stability. Then I glanced at Evelyn and added, my mother-in-law wants to protect herself from gold diggers. There were chuckles. She didn't deny it, just looked down and scribbled in her notebook. Over the next few weeks, something shifted. Slowly at first, she started carrying reusable bags to the store. She clipped coupons and compared unit prices. She took over sorting the mail and began organizing my receipts in envelopes labeled by month. She even tracked our groceries in a spreadsheet I had barely used before. She never bragged about it. She just did it. One day, I overheard her talking to herself in the pantry while stacking canned beans. She muttered, I used to pay someone to hang my coats. I didn't say a word but lingered just long enough to make sure she knew I heard. I started noticing little things. She folded Liam's laundry and aligned the socks. She placed dryer sheets inside the pillowcases. My mother used to do that. Evelyn didn't roll her eyes at the task or pretend she had something more important to do. She just folded, stacked, and tucked. Evenings became quieter. She stopped playing the television on full volume and instead sat in the living room with old photo albums. I passed by once and saw her staring at a picture of herself and Liam's father, both sitting on a second-hand couch in an apartment with mismatched curtains. They looked happy, poor, but happy. There were no diamonds in sight, just smiles. One night, over instant coffee, she spoke without prompting. She said her own mother-in-law once called her a gold digger years ago. She never forgot it. The words stuck. They shaped how she moved through that house, and eventually they shaped how she looked at me. Then she said, I repeated the cycle. I hated it when it happened to me, and I still did it to you. The next evening, I came home from a late meeting and found the table set, 2 plates, steam rising. She had made biryani, the exact recipe my mother used. She had never asked for it, never been taught. Somehow, she got it right, the spice, the texture, the layering. I didn't question how she pulled it off. That night, I found an envelope beside my nightstand. Inside was a letter, handwritten. Her cursive was neat but hesitant, like someone trying something for the first time. I read it 3 times before turning off the light. It said, you earned everything. I just never knew what earning looked like, because I never had to. You didn't humiliate me. You educated me, and I'll never forget that. The next morning, she was gone. No dramatic goodbye, no speech, just silence. She had cleaned the kitchen, wiped down the fridge, folded her sheets, and left. The guest room was spotless. Her robe was folded over the back of the chair. There was a lemon in the fruit bowl with a sticky note on it, for detox. Old habits die hard. A week later, Liam mentioned that his mother had started volunteering. He didn't know the details. Just said she was doing some workshop thing at the community center. I checked the kitchen. On the side of the fridge, behind the grocery list, was a folded flyer. It was for the same budget-ing course we'd taken. In the corner, I recognized her handwriting. Neat, clear, budget workshop, Tuesdays, 4 p.m. She never told me she went back. She didn't need to.